Thank you for watching, listening, tuning in, dialing in to the Wheelhouse podcast. However you're doing so, it's lovely to have you along. Episode 12 is upon us. Catherine Bates is here.
Yes, sorry.
A little bit of a pause, yeah.
My mind is a flutter, Joel. It is, I am thinking of all the nations, all the colours, the road races.
Yeah.
There's
All
a
the
lot
colours
going
of
on.
the
You can
rainbow.
hear the cogs ticking over.
Yeah. You are here, though. You're not like
I'm
a
here.
digital version.
And you completely overlooked my little cog reference. Look, I try, Joel.
Sorry.
I can't match the pun machine
I was
that you
too
are.
busy to throw in all the colours of the rainbow. And we sort of spoke over each other because we were so excited with our respective puns. But there was a slight satellite delay there. And that's
yours.
okay. That's okay.
There's yours back.
It's all things Wollongong on episode 12. Before we get into that, can I just say I love celebrating milestones in history. 12 episodes is equivalent to the amount of Star Wars films that have been released. We've finally done it. And I think it's worth mentioning because the same amount of production scope, scale and effort goes into a single episode of The Wheelhouse as does a Star Wars film. So I think we should give ourselves a little pat on the
back. Yes,
back.
yes. The production team has done an excellent job. Our executive producer, Luke Mears, dresses our studio beautifully. But there is no Star Wars memorabilia in here.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite pleased about, except that the tattoo that you have, the Star Wars tattoo.
It's always there.
It's always
now,
there.
First ever mention of our executive producer's name on the show as well, which is
His
a
real
significant
name,
milestone.
I know.
Wow, what a reveal.
Yes, but he's been a cracker.
He has, he
So-
sure has. Speaking of crackers, let's go to Wollongong. Now, cracking people. I want to just quickly focus on some of the brilliant Aussies that have come from the region. And if we may get off the bike and into the stratosphere just quickly, what about Wollongong when it comes to producing inspiring Australians? I want to start with Emma McKeon. She's an ambassador for the World Championships.
She is indeed. 5-time Olympic gold medalist. I think 7-time minor medalist, which is a curious term, but we can talk about that
minor
another
medalist,
time.
yeah.
I know. Her father, brother and uncle are all Olympians as well. In fact, the course goes past the McKeon Swim Centre.
Oh,
So
wow.
if any of our international guests would like to, work on their backstroke, butterfly, freestyle, breaststroke, any of the above, their medley relay, the McKeons are ready to go.
There'll be some handy help
There will be.
on hand. Now, Adam Demos, he's an Aussie actor, a smouldering Aussie actor. He did a Netflix film. He's done a heap of series. He did a Netflix film called A Perfect Pairing where he gets his lid off. And I had a part in that film too.
What does that even mean? Gets his lid off?
Shirt off.
Oh,
shirt
there you
off.
go.
Removes the shirt.
Oh, and you called him smouldering. So collectively, I think all of our viewers are now Googling this fella.
Yeah, the set, the world stopped.
Oh.
The set stopped, and I went and put a jumper on out of insecurity. Can I just say, John Jarrett is another one. Now, I just want to say for visitors to Wollongong, don't watch his most famous film before coming to Australia.
Wolf Creek. No, I can attest to the horror of that film. Look, very well done, and he's a fantastic actor. But yes, I would stick with Googling the other fella. What's his name? Adam someone.
Demos.
Right, smouldering.
You've got to say it properly. Adam Demos.
Adam
now,
Demos.
Natalie Bassingthwaite, of course.
Oh,
the
yes.
great Natalie Bassingthwaite. And speaking of tonsils,
I'm like, are we talking about Anthony Wallow here?
We
Just
sure are.
guessing.
Bing, 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 bing.
All right, Anthony Wallow is a singer. He's a beautiful opera singer. He does Phantom of the Opera. Well, he does a lot of things, but that's where I love and adore him from. Phantom of the Opera, incidentally, Joel, was my warm-up track.
So you know what I
Yes.
love? The links to Wollongong that you've brought, the last few episodes of the Wheelhouse podcast. You've got so many intrinsic links to the South Coast and to Wollongong. I love that. Anthony Wallow sings Phantom of the Opera. You used to listen to it. It all just works.
Yes, he's beautiful. And the other one, just before we move on from Famous Faces of Wollongong, there's a segment in that, is Arndo.
Arndo.
Yes, he's one of our most favourite and famous refugee stories.
Yep.
He's such an inspirational guy. Came out to Australia as a very small child. He's an artist. He's an actor.
Yep.
He's a children's book author. My kids love his book. He's painted Anna Mears.
We've got to get him on the show.
Yes. Anna Mears' portrait, sorry.
Oh,
to
okay.
clarify.
I was going to say,
he
getting him on
didn't
the show
paint
to do some body
Anna.
paint for me.
He
Okay.
painted her portrait. very well done.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to move us along now.
Yeah.
Before I.
Well, just
yes.
quickly, I think the course might be going near the Steelers Leagues Club as well. You know, I'm a bit of a leaguey. Ando, one of his first films was League Legends, Footy Legends. So that's the loosest link I can find to talk about the great Rod Wishart, Steve Roach, Paul McGregor, all products of. You're a big footy fan. You'd recognise.
Oh, I
those
am.
names,
I
I'm
just
sure.
further north
Yeah.
than Wollongong. That's all. The media centre's actually in the Wynn Stadium.
Oh, there you go. That's
So,
right next to Steelers.
there
So
you
Brett
go.
Lee, Shane Lee, a great Australian fast bowler. His brother Shane, also a great cricketer. Anyway, could go on. We are here to talk about the men's and women's road race, the grand finale, the climax of the Wollongong Worlds. Now, before anything else, if you don't mind, Catherine Bates. See, I'm calling you Catherine when we're talking.
It's very formal.
Technical.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. UCI quirks. There's a list of what do you call them? Like equipment rules that is. It strikes me as it's almost like a comedy, like a sketch.
Well, I was going to say the list of quirky rules is as long as your socks, but actually there's a limit on that too. And they will come out with a measuring tape and measure the length of your socks.
They will measure the length
because
of your socks.
they're not allowed to be more than half the length of your calf, tibia, fibula from the top of your shoe to your knee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they will measure your leg length
Okay.
and then where the socks fall on that.
And you know what else will get you in trouble?
Black socks.
If you're wearing black socks.
Yeah.
No black socks.
Honestly, if you could hear an eye roll, you would have heard me just give a massive eye roll because that is the silliest rule.
Why is it
The most
why is
baseless
it a rule?
rule.
I don't get
I think
it.
it's just one of those old ones, when it was a gentlemanly kind of sport, yes, before women were allowed, that it just hasn't been changed. I don't know. But they also weigh the bikes, Joel, so 6.8 kilos have to be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that the basis for that is for equipment strength and to stop research and development happening where they're just stripping off layers of carbon off the bikes and making them lighter, but perhaps they're not as strong. Look,
talk about quirky.
You know.
This next one gets me. This is my favourite. Actually, up there with the black socks. But scanning bikes for a motor
yes,
is a thing as well.
it's a thing.
Has there been a case in history where someone's rocked up like sorry,
On
mate,
their Harley.
Is that a Harley? You're going to climb Mount Kira on a Harley Davidson?
Yeah,
Not sure that's
look,
allowed.
Incidentally, they didn't need a scanning machine for that one.
Yeah.
They could just do the old
That was
eye
a naked
check.
eye scan. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's because we went through a period in the sport where people were saying that motor doping was going to be the next big thing.
Okay.
It happened.
Like pimping your ride.
Yeah,
okay.
totally pimp my ride
Yeah.
with a battery. It happened in women's cyclocross.
Okay.
It was a younger girl though, and it was actually her dad who'd put it in, and nobody really got to the bottom of whether she knew that had happened or not. It hasn't happened on the road in World Tour professional, but they talk about how it could happen, and so they're a step ahead. I think it's a bit odd, but
Imagine that. It's like, Ghana, whoever wins the time trial. It later emerged
yes,
that he did it on a Ducati.
yeah. Yes.
He was stripped of his medal.
Better a Ducati than a Vespa. Let's
Fair,
just
fair. Now let's move on. It's such a beautiful course that the intricacies, the technicalities of the course aside, I just want to take a moment to talk about the splendour. So a Royal National Park start.
Yeah, it is so beautiful, Joel. They're starting at Helensburgh, which is the edge of the Royal National Park, so the southern edge of it, and they go down to Bald Hill, which is where they join the coast. Bald Hill is also the lookout where all of the paragliders depart from.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's always this grand sight. From there, you descend down into Wollongong. The view is absolutely magnificent. I have a feeling that a lot of the riders will, even when they're training on the course, stop there and take quite a lot of pictures. But even in the race, because it's very early on and, there won't really be any action happening at that point, it's kind of neutral through some of that as well, just because it's downhill at the very start. They will also be enjoying these beautiful views, and the helicopters will show us all of the beautiful beaches of the Royal National Park, including Gary, which is another name that I think the international commentators might get a little bit tongue twisted on.
Look,
God
I'm not
knows.
going to say a single thing about pronunciations,
Well,
but
it's-
Gary Beach is hard to reach beauty, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's just beautiful. You have to drive into the national park and then walk down. So a lot of the beaches around there are only accessible by foot. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful part of the world.
Now, I chuckled
doubt.
before because you said they'll stop and take a photo, but then you said during training.
During
I
training.
legitimately thought you meant, okay, we're off and racing, and Pogacar's
No.
just taken a second to get out the iPhone. Okay, that's not going to happen, but it might.
No.
It
Well,
might.
they're not allowed phones,
We'll see.
incidentally.
Look, they're not allowed black socks either, so...
This is true.
Now, you mentioned another term that appeals to me as an amateur enthusiastic cyclist. Downhill, one of my favourite terms. Now, almost the first 40 Ks, Kate Bates.
It is, yes. So they depart from Helensburgh, they head to beautiful Bald Hill, they descend down, and then they go over the beautiful Seacliff Bridge, Joel, which is man-made. The road used to go along the cliff, and now they've extended it out over the ocean because the cliff needed some fortifying. It is magnificent. It is so beautiful. Just to ride over it is magnificent. To drive over it, I think probably 90% of the world's car ads are filmed. You know, like the amount of they've probably made their money back on the $95 million it costs to build it, just based on cars doing commercials along there with drones and helicopters and whatnot.
It's a gorgeous
It's
stretch.
magnificent. So that's going to be really beautiful as well.
And get some pace up.
Yes.
Some pace up.
And then they go, when they get a bit further south, Joel, they're going through kind of Bulli territory, the bottom of Bulli Pass. And I believe that the local lifesavers are going to line the roads through there in a very organised fashion to kind of give a guard of honour to the athletes coming through for the
Brilliant.
men and the women's road race, which is so cool.
It's
really
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. I hope Emma McKeon will be among, maybe John Jarrett, maybe even Rod Wishart if we're lucky.
And I think what it's to do is to make them feel welcome and comfortable because then they've got to hit Woonona and the Magpies.
And goodbye.
And so it's
Goodbye
kind
to
of
safety.
softening them up. Yeah.
I want to talk about the Magpies among the many quirks. Now, that's one thing that there's zero control, I guess, to an extent over what may not happen with the swooping devil birds. Now,
Swooping devil birds. I think that's fair.
I think on episode, I don't know, a while ago, that it could cause quite a bit of disruption.
It could. It's a thing. Like a lot of people have been talking about it, and is there some danger there? It's such a well-known hotspot for them, and they're unpredictable.
They are no one's spirit animal.
No one's. I don't know. I've never been swooped in a bunch.
Okay.
And
so basically, you're saying don't break away in the road race. Just
that is what I'm
bunch
saying.
Up. Okay.
The early break is not safe.
Don't
is
do
what
it.
I am
Don't
saying.
do it. Yep. Okay. The other thing that's not the only threat from the skies, and a little bit of rain predicted as well.
It is predicted. Yes. Wollongong. I mean, it brings the weather. As soon as the weather comes in, the weather goes out too.
Yep.
So it may be showers, but at this stage, the weatherman is saying that there will be rain for both the women's and the men's road races, which is going to be a very big factor because they'll go around Mount Kira, which is about a 7.5 kilometre climb and a bit of a hairy descent. They'll have to be very cautious there. Then when they head onto the city circuit, it's 17.1k around, but when they get to the top of Mount Pleasant, it is an incredibly fast and technical descent. The kind of descent where there will be hay bales left, right and centre in case people do wash out so that they're not hitting any kind of road furniture.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a completely different landscape if the roads are wet. So even if there's showers and the roads are wet and it's not falling. And it's also good to remember when you're considering the weather, Joel, that often light showers is far more treacherous than rain.
Yeah.
Light showers just make the roads really slippery.
Bit of a slick. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
and those corners on the city circuit, they're going to have a huge impact on the race.
Yeah.
And the final of the race, I think.
So it could change the result like
Massively,
yeah.
And not just change the result because you will have some crashes, definitely. But there will be some riders who are not comfortable to go down there and match the speed of people they're in the group with.
Yeah.
So they may then choose to attack at different points to be able to have a bit more comfort and a bit more break before they go down it. It may just slow the entire bunch down. There's a lot of different factors because the different skilled riders will approach it slightly differently.
Yep.
And we'll talk about the riders in a little bit, but you can imagine that riders like Julian Alaphilippe, who's coming back from an injury, will he be, only a couple of weeks ago, dislocated his shoulder, will he be super confident descending on a technical descent in the rain? Is his shoulder okay? So, I think that every single rider will have to come up with their own strategy for how to deal with that.
It's amazing how so many months of planning and prep can sort of essentially
go by the wayside.
A little bit just
Yes.
just be washed away. Now, I feel like we should campaign for a magpie raid siren and a rain raid siren, just so the riders have a little bit of a heads up, just to, or maybe
well, there's a lot of military kind of history in the Gong area, a lot of installments, and so I think that could be a little bit confusing.
Okay, yeah, let's not open up old. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Now, I want to just continue quickly on course quirks, because in 2010, I'm wrapping my head around this, so forgive me if I pitch it woefully, but a long lead in to city laps basically caused a bit of an issue in Geelong. This course presents a bit of a similar risk.
It did. It was an issue because they started on the outskirts of Melbourne and proceeded down along the highway before they got to the city circuit in Geelong. Now, an early break went, and the bunch was so comfortable with who was in the break that they did let it go a fair distance in front. It was around the 12 to 13 minute mark when they started getting concerned, because once they hit that city circuit, if they're more than 20 minutes ahead, I think it was in 2010, the bunch would have to be pulled out because they would be a lap behind.
Sure.
And so at the time it was communicated with the bunch, this is the situation, and they had to get a bit of a hurry on. So they didn't pull it all the way back before they got to Geelong, but they certainly did start increasing their tempo and putting a bit more of a dent in the chase than they were planning to do for that. Now, we've got a similar thing here because they come down from Helensburgh. They then go around the Mount Kira Loop, which is about 34 kilometres.
Yep.
They then go onto the city circuit. They're doing 12 laps, 17.1 kilometres a lap. It is very foreseeable that if a break gets too far out in front on that early, that the bunch will have to really rein it in before they get back on that city circuit.
How interesting. Isn't that a fascinating... I'm almost ready to say lucky we have the magpies patrolling the skies. And
yes, to keep Grupo Compato.
Keep
is that
everyone,
what you're saying?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
And that is a really defining feature of a World Championship course too, is that they do have the predominance of it is city circuits.
Yeah, sure.
And that's for the fans. It's just to make it a different flavour race than anything else in the season. So you really have nothing else like that. And that's the whole purpose of this kind of course design.
Okay,
It's
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
On the Wheelhouse podcast, my name's Joel Spreadbury with Catherine Bates. Now, no radios is another one that intrigues me among the quirks. Before we move on, once you're done, once you get on that downhill and it's just you, the magpies, the rain,
and your mates,
and
in
your
your
mates.
team, in your team colours.
Yeah. And thousands of screaming fans. Yeah, but other than that, you're on your own.
Well, the athletes are used to racing in their World Tour teams, the women and the men, and with radios.
Yeah.
Here, they're racing for their national team, so it's a very different group of athletes that are racing together, and they don't have any radios, so they really rely on each other for the leadership and the guidance. They'll have a very firm strategy heading out there, but then once they're out there, the team director is really just sitting there, driving behind, giving water bottles or waiting for anybody who might need a mechanical, because they can't give any instructions live to the athletes like they normally can.
I love
in
that.
any kind of race. But it's interesting. Cadell Evans said when we chatted last week about it all that this could really come into play for teams like Belgium, where there's maybe a little bit of ego and politics that come into it. And once they're out there, they're making their own decisions, and they need to work together. And if they don't, they become very vulnerable. No matter how good they are, their strategy becomes very vulnerable if they're not really united as a team.
We've spoken before about teams, riders, individual riders needing to sort of shift their focus and be either more for themselves, more for the riders. And one theme that emerged on a common basis was how good Aussies are at doing that. So is that another little green and gold?
It is. Well, you know, in the women's, we've got Amanda Spratt leading the team. And her
Sorry, who? Sorry?
yeah, Spratty Blue Shoes.
Thank you, yeah,
yes.
cool.
Her first World Championships was in Geelong back in 2010. It's 2022. That's a lot of World Championships in between.
Yeah.
And she is the most experienced. She's just so good out on the bike, keeping everybody calm. So they will do the strategy beforehand, but they know when they go out there that under the leadership of Spratty Blue Shoes, everybody will be able to feel very comfortable about what their role is.
Yep.
And just go ahead and execute. Almost take the emotion out of it and the gravitas of what is a home world championships and just get on with the job.
Beautifully said. Swoop on the opportunity. Unlike yes. Yeah, okay. On the Wheelhouse podcast. Now let's talk about a few of the headline acts. But before we do, I want to ask a question because it's been an interesting build up to say the very, very least. We've had selection headaches left, right, and centre. We've had World Tour teams basically not wanting to get out, fall out of the top tier of racing and being reluctant to release riders, big names. We've also had coaches struggling in the selection process with funding, increased costs of travel, all that kind of thing. What I'm getting at here is the product diminished in any way by this build-up?
I think it's been interesting to talk about. And if you look historically, there's always these little quirks to talk about. It's like every September in Sydney, people say, oh, it's never been this windy before. Every September. Yeah. So I think every Worlds you have this similar kind of conjecture in the lead-in. But come race day, we've got the most magnificent field. In the time trials, we saw the reigning World Championships arrive on the shores. For the road races, similar story. We've got the reigning World Championships champions, who are lining up and ready to go. And we have a deep, talented field for men and women. So I don't think you can ever get every single high-profile rider. And part of that is because they're different courses. It's not like athletics where an 800-metre is an 800-metre.
Yeah.
This course is very specific to some riders and really not specific to others. Caleb Ewan is a really great example of who fell by the wayside because of that. And so the people who are here, it's going to be a cracker.
It's going to be a cracker. And still,
I get disproportionately excited about the road races, Joel, I got to say.
It's been on your mind.
It's like an adrenaline rush even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Takes me back. I did a couple of road races at the World Championships.
Yep.
Not my best days on the bike.
Okay.
I could say that.
Okay.
I performed better at the track worlds.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I still it's such a special moment to line up on the start line.
Yep.
For every athlete, regardless of where you are.
Yeah, we've a lot of chat about Caleb, of course, not being there, but what a team!
What a team! I mean, the Aussies just have an absolutely ripping team, men and women, and I think everybody will take this moment with them for the rest of their careers, regardless of an outcome. But thankfully, the men and women are both in very good stead to have a good outcome. So even better.
Look, well said. Now let's get into some of the contenders because we'll talk about. I want to call it. I'd say contenders. That's a bit there. Kate Bates' mates. Let's go through Kate Bates' mates list. So we're going to start with the women, ladies first. Now, of the Australian team of Baker, Brown, Chapman, Manley, Roy, Blue Shoes, and Talbot, you've gone with Grace Brown as your first pick in the women's list. Now, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but explain why is she one of Australia's main hopes on the roads? I know it's close to where she grew up and all of that, but why else?
Well, 164.3k for the women, and that's quite a long road race. Grace Brown has been in exceptionally good form. She won a stage of the women's Vuelta in early September, so she's clearly on form. She's also spent a lot of time reconning the course, and she's really built her season very specifically around the World Championships. She's had some big victories in the classics, in the one-day races. No question she's a one-day specialist. But also because of where she is on her development journey, every time gets better. And so I think that for a lot of international, she'd be on their radar, but maybe a bit of a smoky because she doesn't have a huge amount of wins to her name. She's got a lot of top 3s, top 5s.
Okay.
But I have a lot of faith in her rising to the gravity of a home World Championships. So,
Okay. Is she Australia's main hope in men and women, just quickly? Or?
well, I think in the men, Michael Matthews probably goes in.
Okay, a bit higher.
Well, on level footing, I would say.
Okay.
But it's unlike the time trial, the road race is a bit more variable. So even the favourites often don't win, actually.
Yeah.
And so I think that goes in Grace's favour, that she's one of the people that people are watching. But some of the other riders that we'll go through are probably more favoured.
Okay, like the Melbourne Cup, never back the favourite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a betting person, so I don't know the odds, but I do know that your Van Vlotens, for example, she's the one that everybody will be looking to.
Well, yeah, never back a favourite unless it's Van Vloten because
Yeah, she
let's
kind
move
of breaks
on to
that, doesn't she?
Arnhem. Yeah. Wow, the Dutch Trident. I love it so much. Part of the Dutch Trident, an important part of it. Vos, Vollering, Van Vloten. So she's got to be the standout name over 100, over 164 k's, just under 2.5 k's of elevation. Why is it hers to lose?
She did the triple crown. That's not actually a thing, but she won the 3 women's major tours this year, the women's Giro, the women's Tour de France, and most recently the women's Vuelta. There's no doubt that she's the dominant climber and performer in the women's field this year. Is the course tough enough for her to be so dominant? I don't think so. I also think that the descent, in particular off Mount Pleasant, will be less than pleasant. So I think there's a bit of irony in what that's going to be for her.
I like what you did there.
Thank
Very
you.
Good, yeah.
And they also go through the delightfully named Fairy Meadow. So, it sounds all very magical. I don't think that'll be the experience of the riders. So she goes in as the hot favourite, but I do think that there are some very specific challenges for her very dominant skill set that maybe aren't as relevant for some of the other riders. And as hot favourite, she'll scratch her nose and people will follow her. So it's not easy going in as favourite.
She'll scratch her nose and people will become intimidated.
Oh.
Everything
that
she
too.
does is just, And also on the cusp of 40, life begins, coming into the peak of her career,
a
the
couple of
prime.
weeks away from it.
Yeah, so what a way to celebrate.
You're not
that.
there yet, Joel, but I can tell you it's a wonderful feeling.
A special time.
It is.
A special time. Now, moving on, Kate Bates' mates. Now, your mate, Marianne Vos.
The goat.
Whew, yeah, what?
Don't make me bleat again like I did on a previous episode. Marianne Vos is just the most dominant rider in history. Female, male, 13 world titles across all disciplines. She is exceptional. This is a very good course for her. Very dynamic and brilliant course. We do need to consider how strong the Dutch team is overall. Who will they be riding for? They've got a good history in a bad way of stuffing it up. So even though they've won so many world titles in the last 6 years, prior to that, they very often had the favourite on the start line, but they didn't work together. They kind of worked against each other, and it all went, a little bit...
Belly up.
Yeah. Thank you. I was trying
I know what you were going to say,
get my mind away from a less favourable term. And but this course is perfect for Marianne Vos. She's been in exceptionally good form this season. We saw that at the Women's Tour de France. And then up in Scandinavia, she was dominant again. So she'll be, in my mind, she's not too far off retirement. And I think that a course like this, she won't let that opportunity go.
We led with Grace, and we love Grace, but do we need does something need to go wrong for the likes of Vos and Van Vloten for,
No, I just think that a world championship, something goes wrong for everybody all the time.
Okay.
The chances of things going wrong are pretty high, and that's kind of the beauty of it as well.
Okay. Okay. Now, we haven't got to the defending champion, Elisa Balsamo and Kate Bates' mates. Controversially, we're not going to.
No. I've gone with Longo Borghini.
Yeah, okay. Elisa, she's Why? Look, I know she's
Why?
been in scintillating form of late. Is that
Yes.
you based on
Well,
recent form?
Balsamo has also been in great form, but I think on this kind of course, it will require a certain resilience and toughness. On the not-so-pleasant Mount Pleasant. They go up there 6 times, the women. And Longo Borghini, she won the women's Paris-Roubaix this year. Resplendent in her national champions colours at the time, I might add. It's just a really, really good course for her. I have a feeling that the Italians will put their money on her rather than Balsamo. Balsamo will likely be a second bet. Look after her, see what it comes down to. But if the race goes as we're planning to suit a Van Vleuten or a Vos, it's going to be a pretty aggressive and pretty tough race, especially up that climb on the circuits. And that's where Longo Borghini will really come into her fore.
Okay. Okay, the battle of the Italian goats.
Yes. Well, there's a Dutch goat and I suppose there's a couple of Italian goats too.
It's just goats everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not a bad prospect. Now, Liana Lippert, now the German. Now, I'm interested in this because she's, well, you'll correct me or go with me here, but Movistar's heir apparent to your mate. It's 2 of your mates involved here. So your mate Lippert is the Movistar heir apparent to your mate AVV, which must be tear you in different directions. But aside from all of that,
I don't know if it might be a bit of an oversell.
okay,
Although I put her in our favourites for Worlds, so clearly I think that she's a very talented rider. The young German, the best victory that I have seen was at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race a couple of years ago. And she was just sensational. She's young. She's got a really great attitude. She's very bike savvy about the way that she goes through a bunch. It's like she sees it all in slow motion and can find her way from the back to the front in the most efficient way. And I just really like her riding style. And again, these quite young riders, sometimes a little bit of talent just turns into world champion. And that's what we saw with Balsamo last year. Nobody expected her to be world champion.
yeah.
She was in great form, but she didn't really have the track record necessarily. Okay. And I think that's where I put Lippert. So she's a bit of a smoky, but I think she deserves a mention.
Okay, well, nice one.
Yeah.
Nice one. Kate Bates, mates, it's a tough list to make. It's a very tough list to make. So let's see. Let's move on. Your final female entrant, Lottie Kopecky. So the Belgian. She was the Belgian Talent of the Year in 2017, which is no small feat, let's be honest, when you're looking at Belgium. Yeah.
Immense depth of talent over there. She's been Belgian, I nearly said Dutch. That's like calling an Aussie a Kiwi. Heavens, sorry. Kopecky was the Belgian national road champion, but she's also been exceptionally successful on the track. She's been world champion on the track. She's got a great turn of speed on her. But as she develops and gets older, she's turning more into a classics rider than simply a sprinter. So earlier in her career, if she could get to the finish, she was in a great position to win. But as she gets older, she's getting stronger and more powerful for the longer races. The classics like Flanders or Roubaix is where we really are looking to her to shine in the next couple of years. She already has, but even more so. And I think, again, this course, because it's pretty tough, it'll be the edge of her limitations. But if she can look after herself and get over Mount Pleasant with that front group, I wouldn't want to take her to the finish.
Okay.
So I think she could be in for a good one.
I've asked you this before, but you keep dropping little nuggets saying I wouldn't want to take her. Come back?
No, I preempted that. No.
Okay. We'll see. Now let's move along on the Wheelhouse podcast. My name's Joel Spreadborough, joined by Kate Bates, going through all things Wollongong World Championships, road races. Kate Bates Mates is another name for contenders, but they're all Kate Bates Mates. So let's stay with Kate Bates Mates and have a look at the male field. Now, we'll open up with a great Australian, a 13-time GT stage winner. Had a good result in Quebec recently, Michael Matthews.
Yes.
And this suits him. This course, this terrain is a sprinter who can climb. Not bad for him.
Well, look, this is almost perfect for the Stage 14 comparison at the Tour de France in 2022 that he won, which was a beautiful victory. Gave him a lot of faith. He'd been in the wilderness a little bit. few years between drinks in terms of victories. He's back.
Yeah.
He's back. He's
Yep.
got a lot of faith. And the Australian team have very much picked a team for him to be successful against the likes of taking a backup like Caleb Ewan.
Yep.
So in many ways, I think we can surmise that Michael Matthews will be very well looked after.
Mm-hmm.
But he does need to survive because they do 12 laps around the Mount Pleasant circuit. So it's 269.7 kilometres.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long race.
It's
It is a long day in the saddle. The early part of Mount Kira will be quite incidental for the men because it's such a long race, but those ending city circuits will be a very big deal. It's about a 2.5 minute effort going up Mount Pleasant 12 times. So it's very different character to a 5-minute climb.
Yeah.
So Michael Matthews does have the physiology to do it. It'll be a tough day for him, but he has been on the podium at the World Championships before. He won the under-23 category at the last Australian Road World Championship. So, yeah, is that an omen? I don't know.
There's
but
a great...
I'll put all the eggs in his basket, I reckon.
It's fantastic symmetry, 12 years on. The 23s to the elite men's.
I know, there's some poetry in that,
let's
isn't
complete the set. Let's complete the set. One guy that will be standing in his way is... I love a nickname, future king of Slovenia. I've said it before. I'll say it again, Pogačar. Now, you had a little bit of reservation about Pog's time trial prospects. Does this extend to Pog on the road?
I think very different situations. So my reservation in the time trial was more about how good he is in Grand Tour time trials, but a bit untested in individual ones. He is in scintillating form. He outsprinted Wout van Aert in Quebec for the Grand Prix Montreal. Before he came here, he used that to sharpen his legs to outsprint Van Aert in a three-man group.
Yep.
Either Van Aert's stuffed up or Pogačar is on such incredible form. I'm going to go with the latter.
What a duel, yeah.
He is, there is no question he's hunting the rainbows. Bit of disappointment for him coming second at the Tour de France this year. I think he went in thinking the hat trick was his to take. It didn't quite happen, and he's a pretty motivated young man.
Yeah, well, he came up against the fisherman, and good luck.
Yeah,
good luck.
but again, this is a great course for him, so I would put the biggest target on his back.
Okay, and 4,000 metres of climbing, not really an issue.
Yeah, look, it's a lot of climbing. I mean, he's obviously a great climber, but this goes back to what Cadel Evans said about the course and being harder on paper potentially than it is. So if they race hard, the harder they race, the better it is for the Pog.
Okay, well, moving on. So, your mate.
We're just sticking with that, aren't we?
Kate Bates' mates. This is the big one, though. This is the big one. Am I correct in saying the biggest of the big?
Yeah, I'm seeking an autograph.
Yeah, your mate Wout. Now, he's been busy. He's been cheering juniors this week, which is such a cool thing, by the way.
Yeah, there was a really cool little video of him cheering on the junior nationals as they went by. I was surprised. They were waving at him. I was surprised nobody pulled over for said autograph, but maybe they did out of shot. Now, he goes in as one of the roaring favourites. He was second last year, but he was silver in the Olympics behind Carapaz. Carapaz got away. He's 4-time cyclocross world champion. This is relevant to me even more than all of his Tour de France stage victories, of which he's amassed 9 so far, and a green jersey from this year, as you do.
Yeah.
But his 4 cyclocross victories, he's got excellent skills. So we were talking about the course, how technical it is, how much the rain could come into play, 12 descents down Mount Pleasant. That is his opportunity to really shine. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for, if coming into those final laps, there's still quite a group together, that's where I think he can make a massive impact.
This, as a mate of yours, well, it's a lot of trolling recently about his clutch gene, which I thought was a bit ridiculous. Where do you stand on that? Just quickly, like with an opportunity such as this, does that get in the way? That big moments, criticism that's come his way?
I don't think so. I mean, we need to look back to his victory on the Champs-Élysées at the 2021 Tour de France ahead of Mark Cavendish, who was seeking the 35 stages and the ultimate record of stage wins there.
Yep.
He performs in very big moments. He doesn't perform in some other moments, but perhaps we could consider that any other rider wouldn't even be there in all of the moments. And specifically, people are looking at his sprinting statistics from small groups and saying, oh, he's not performing when maybe he should. But a lesser rider wouldn't even be there at the finish in that small group.
Okay.
He's there all the time.
He's always
put
thereabouts.
himself in the position.
Yeah.
And often I think he's at his absolute limit to even be there. So versatile across different courses. But I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Okay. And a score to settle with Pog, of course, Montreal.
Yes.
So now we always talk about your mates. I'm going to take a moment to talk about my mate now because this is one of my favourites, Lulu, Julian Alaphilippe. Now, twice defending champion, but he's had a pretty horrible year, culminating, of course, in a bit of a busted shoulder in stage 11 in Spain. He's working hard. He has been working hard to be there and do what he can, but he's on your list. He's on your list.
Yeah, he's won the last 2 World Championships.
Yeah.
He's been a bit hit with the curse of the rainbow this year. He's had a terrible one. He was out most of the season and then he came back in the Vuelta, dislocated his shoulder halfway through. But he's here and he's ready. Yep. So, I do question whether if it is raining and on that technical course, if he may have some trouble or some hesitation. More than trouble on the descent. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he might not even know until the day. He's running it pretty close with that kind of injury to be race ready. So, of course, don't write him off. I mean, he's got so much panache.
Yeah.
Honestly. But doing a hat trick would be pretty phenomenal for any rider.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think he's in the best position to achieve that. But, yeah, we'll see how he goes.
We'll see. Maybe relegated to, if he can't compete to where he wants to be, a team role or something like that. It's still a formidable,
Yeah, Christophe
asset.
Laporte is here for the French as well, and he's in good form, and he'd definitely be on the list of ones to watch.
Okay. Now, another mate of yours, Kate Bates' mates, were our Netherlands' favourite son, Mathieu van der Poel. Now, the grandson of Poupou, of course. I'm looking for, this guy's a rock star. They want to go big. They want to go big. Netherlands want to go big. This guy's leading the way for them. And aside from everything else, just having him here. I know. It's like Elton John back in Wollongong.
He's cool. And what I really like about Van der Poel is not just his racing style, but also his vulnerabilities. He's had a lot of fails. He's had a lot of wins, but he's had a lot of quite public fails as well, including the Olympics where he chose to do the mountain bike. Epic fail.
Okay.
He went A over T, stacked it. Terrible. And he owned that too. And I like that because some of them we have to start picking like Van Aert. You have to start picking on little statistics to find weakness in him. Van der Poel, he's the perfect. He gives you all the material you need to be critical of him. Yeah. But he keeps bouncing back. He said that he's struggled with a back injury that has plagued him a bit this season, but he's worked pretty hard on it. He's here on a mission, and he's stated, I want to win the Rainbows. I love that confidence and I love that intent because regardless of what happens, again, he's shown the vulnerability to be criticised if he doesn't do it.
Okay.
I like that. I like that he's not afraid to put it out there and show his intentions. So he's done some remarkable things. He's, again, 4-time cyclocross world champion. So incredible skills. The descent will be his to own, but he will, even more than Van Aert, he will have to conserve energy and the Dutch team will have to really look after him to make sure that in the back end of what is a very long race, nearly 270 kilometres, that he's still got the legs.
Well, they'd want to look after him because otherwise don't bother returning home.
I know.
Don't even
I
bother.
know.
He's the
they'll
treasure.
have to go in the hold on the flyback.
One final mention on the Wheelhouse podcast, men's road race. So Biniam Gourmet, I like to call him the Eritrean rocket.
Yes. I like that.
Thank you.
I think if we can find him in the mix zone, Joel, pre-race, you can pitch it to him. He's in really good form. He was tremendous at this year's Giro, but most recently he also prepared in Montreal where we saw Van Aert and Podge also doing their thing. And he was third in the GP Quebec, so we know that his form is coming along quite well. I just think the young African is kind of a bit of an unknown because he's just burst onto the scene, but he's become so popular and he's just doing such incredibly inspiring things for African cycling as well. And he'll come to Australia as a bit of a rock star.
A bit of a rocket star.
Yeah, a bit of a rocket star. Okay. I would love to see him do well.
Okay.
I'd really love to see him do well. And he'll be a little bit harder to notice in his Eritrean kit, actually, versus the very bright Wanty Gobert.
Yeah, sure.
But he'll be a fan favourite, and I think if he's on a good day, he'll be there at the finish. If he's there at the finish, some days are absolute rippers, some days are less. But if he's on one of the ripper days, definitely on the podium, if not a potential smoky for the Rainbows.
It's going to be a packed podium.
Can
we extend the podium?
At this rate it is, isn't it?
It's going to be a 50-strong podium.
Yeah, they'll be elbowing each other out of the way.
Yeah, I love it though. The Kate Bates mates list for the men and women. I'm just going to quickly break it down. We'll go women first, then men. Final pick: 1, 2, 3.
Van Vleuten.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know that I meant that. Voss, can I do that?
No!
All right, sorry.
That's all right. 1, 2, 3.
Podge.
Okay, Podge is going to do it. All right.
Yeah.
How exciting! How is exciting! I'm going to do a quick
exciting.
special mention to Cecily, the pride of Denmark.
Yes.
If I may, just a quick mention. What a year! What a year! You just never know. You just never know. And I think the world, cycling fans the world over, will be very, very, very happy.
Well, Cecily, no matter what happens, will win interview of the championships.
A friend of the Wheelhouse.
Yes. Well, she'll become a friend. I mean, come on now.
I love it. Good luck to all the riders. It's going to be very exciting.
And for anybody actually travelling to Wollongong, remember the Wheelhouse is doing a live episode after the women's road race. So check all of our social media, our YouTube, our Instagram, our Twitter for all of the details on where you can find us. But Joel, that's going to be very fun to unpack all the details of what happens there.
Come and say g'day.
Yes.
Yeah, love it.
Joel's not nearly as scary as he seems.
This is the Wheelhouse podcast. I'm Joel Spreadborough. Lovely to have your company. Catherine Bates.
Very formal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See you next time. The Wheelhouse is produced by River City Studios for Listener. Executive produced by Luke Mears and the mysterious Merksy. It's written and hosted by Kate Bates and me, Joel Spreadborough.